Simplified Chaos, episode 78.
Life is beautiful and full of chaos.
And it can get slightly out of hand if that shit's not tamed.
We're here to share how to simplify the little things to help you lead a more intentional life.
This is Simplified Chaos.
Hey friends, welcome to Simplified Chaos. This is Jillian, one of your hosts, and I'm with my co-host and ruggedly handsome, hardworking husband, Nicholas.
What's going on, folks? Hope this week is treating you well. We've got a very special episode here for you today as we have another interview in the books. Jilly, who did you interview this week?
This week, I was able to virtually sit down. I wish it was in person.
Yeah.
With Laura Bruner. We connected on Instagram. She has her own podcast that I was a guest on, Modern Mama's podcast, which is awesome. So go check her out. And I wanted to keep it light. You know, I know it's like a heavy time and there's a lot of people just diving into some work, whatever the work they're doing, on mindset or on just shifting priorities, whatever it is. I wanted her to be a light at this time and just share how she's staying happy and joyful, but still doing it with meaning and purpose and intentionality. So
yeah. And for our first virtual interview, I think it sounds really great. So I'm excited for everybody to hear that. I wish I had an opportunity to talk with Laura as well, but the scheduling didn't really match up. But we will make our way out there to interview her in person one day. So this is just kind of the prequel.
Yeah. So we didn't want to give too much of her journey away because, yes, we still plan on hopping on over there on the West Coast to California to visit her one day.
That's
when
right.
Things change a little bit. Traveling safetier or
safely.
Thank you.
There you go.
But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this little nugget of joy.
All right. So grab your popcorn or keep your eyes on the road and enjoy this interview with Laura.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome, Laura. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast.
It is truly a pleasure. I know, like you and I, man, we've been going back and forth for a long time now, and we had you on the podcast, and now to be here again on this side of it is such a treat. So thank you.
So for all of our listeners, part of the reason why I reached out to Laura is that she is one of the guests that we were going to travel to interview and hear about her story and her family and meet them in person, but things happened. We shifted and pivoted, and we're here now, and I still wanted her to just share some of the joy and happy things that she's been doing, because I know right now is pretty heavy with between COVID and then all of these new movements, you know, with Black Lives Matter. And there's just so much going on right now. And I think it's important that we process it, but I don't think we have to do it in a way that burdens us. I think we can still find joy and happiness through the processing of all of this that's happening. And I feel like, you know, I follow you on Instagram and I see all of the joy and amazing things you're doing with your family. And I'm talking way too much. So before we dive in to just hear a little bit more about you, and this is going to be kind of like a teaser episode, friends, because we do want to hear all of Laura's story and just have that big open space for her to share anything and everything. So this is going to be focused on just keeping it fun and like super intentional during this time. But yeah, before we start, Laura, we always do a gratitude segment. So if you could share one thing that you are grateful for today, what would that be?
My daughter. I just recorded an episode of the Modern Mama's podcast and just started like sobbing. She turns 3 in 3 days. And this week has been filled with a lot of feelings around that. Just the joy that it is to be her mom, and, you know, the feelings of, with everything that's going on and really wanting to do, and I know we'll dive more into this, but I'm feeling gratitude to be her mom for so many reasons. First off, she's just an incredible human. And second off, she really helps me seek a growth mindset every single day, because I know that she is my greatest opportunity and most important responsibility. And that by raising her, I can be an advocate. You know what I mean? Like there's so much wrapped up in that. And just to watch her now transforming into this kid who I just adore. Yesterday we went and saw a dear friend of ours who just had a baby. And so Evie and my husband Rusty came, and Evie had like a moment where she got a little bit upset, and, you know, I sat and talked her through it, and I'm going to cry. My friend sent me a text after and was just like, I am, kind of in awe of you and your relationship with her and the way that you speak to her and the way that she communicates with you. And I just like started crying pretty hard because I'm just realizing how much of a gift it is. And by no means am I perfect, but I'm grateful for her in helping me to lean into my imperfections and to better myself always and to show up for her, and therefore also really for myself, because I know that I can't be fully there for her if I don't also take care of myself and love this body and this heart and this mind as well. So Evie Wilder.
Oh my gosh, that was lovely. Lucille just turned 2. So I can relate to just seeing them grow and develop into themselves. And it is cool. It's hard to see yourself outside of yourself. I mean, obviously, but when I understand, I can resonate when a third party like just gives you a compliment or just tells you an observation in like the nicest way possible. Like your relationship or how you speak to them is amazing. And to me, that's like the biggest compliment in the world. It means I'm on my way to becoming a better human than before.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about compliment about how you're momming. And I know momming is different for everyone, but it's just, it goes right to my heartstrings. Like nothing else matters when I hear those things about the way I do with Lucille and with my husband. Just seeing him step into that dad role is just, I'm falling in love with him all over again.
Right. And we're coming up on Father's Day too. And so I've been like processing a lot there around, what a gift it is to have him as my partner, but then also as Evie's dad. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Well, my gratitude segment's going to be really obvious. I'm just grateful that you are taking the time out of your day to be here. I mean, I know you could be with family or, doing work things that you're passionate about, but the fact that you said yes and agreed to reschedule and schedule it and just make this happen, I am truly, truly honored to have you here and just to have you spread joy and light in your perspective of, processing all of this amazing things happening in life. So just thank you for your time and energy for being here.
Of course. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. So, in a nutshell, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, the work you love doing, just to give our listeners just a little sneak peek into who you are. And
Of course, like you mentioned, saving plenty for when we get to sit down in person. Before we got online, we were talking about sitting and having a glass of wine and barbecuing on our deck. And so I'm counting down till that happens. But in the meantime, I'm Laura. And my business website, et cetera, is Radical Roots. And I focus primarily on, it's been interesting to see the trajectory and how that whole passion project has shifted and morphed over the years. Early on, it was called Lift, Laugh, Eat, Repeat. And it makes me chuckle every time I say it, but I was super, 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 super like immersed in CrossFit and paleo. And I was very dogmatic, and I don't regret that season of my life because I learned a lot, but it's so funny to go back and read some of my recipes and whatnot from way back then. And man, I wish I could just like give myself a gentle shake, but I had to go through that season. Right. So when I first started the podcast, my website, I was like eating super dogmatic, like paleo zone, overtraining, and had no cycle, no period. Was about to come into a season of life where I would be in chronic pain. And I've learned a lot since then in terms of like why. It was a combination of overtraining, but also just chronic stress and super A-type, and really just holding on to, internalizing so much like trauma with a little t. Everyone has some semblance of it, I believe. And so just kind of internalizing that and, disordered eating past and kind of being at odds with my body and my mind. I don't regret any of that because of where I am now. So anyways, long story short, seasons passed, tried to paleo extra hard to fix my period, et cetera, and then ended up just like finding surrender and realizing how important it is to ask questions and to connect more to my roots, both like my emotional well-being and emotional roots, also the roots that my family is creating, and then also the roots of the earth and growing food, and really not just thinking about food in terms of macro or even micronutrients, but where it comes from, how taking care of what we eat nourishes our body, but also the planet. Now diving more into the social justice of it, like food justice and how that relates to the systemic racism in this country. And so all that said, it's transitioned into Radical Roots. And so the radical coming from ensuring that I'm always asking questions, whether I seem radical or not, seeing that as a good thing. Like, even if it goes so far as being called a conspiracy theorist, like being a little bit radical every single day is so important. Asking questions every single day is so important. Going a little bit against the grain is important, and kind of always coming back to that. And then the roots is, like I mentioned, just getting in touch and in tune. And so now my work has gone from like very dogmatic fitness and nutrition to focusing significantly more on mindset and perspective, and deep diving into our whys. So why do I want to eat this certain way? Why are my goals this way? Why am I showing up every day? Why am I working out? And then I really, obviously, as I've transitioned into motherhood, poured a lot more into that space too. So focusing a lot on supporting moms and supporting women to kind of find overall health through taking care of ourselves, like through finding self-love. I'm also a beauty counter consultant, so I share a lot of that work there. I am a co-host for the Modern Mamas podcast, which is probably the most important work aside from raising my daughter that I could do, because Jess and I truly just act as guides. So we don't show up there as experts, but we show up there as guides. And I found that that's such a calling for me, because I'm able to bring voices of all different, perspectives, beliefs, races, genders, sexual orientation, and hopefully diversifying that even more, but bringing these voices to this space. So it's not, we are modern mamas, but not every listener is a mom. We just really hope to reach primarily women or those who identify as female, in finding ways to care for themselves. And if, there are episodes that really focus on parenting, and one of the many beautiful things about that is that we just hit our 3-year mark on June 13th, which means that, our first episode aired when I was exactly 1 week from having my kid. And so the podcast has totally transformed and, created the trajectory in many ways through my motherhood transition. And I got to be this guide, but then also a guide for myself, in ways to bring in all these voices and these experts and these different opinions. But then having, with the therapy work I had done leading up to that, really having this mindset around, yes, I'm going to soak this all in, and then I'm going to utilize what calls to me, what appeals to me, what works for my kid and my husband and our family unit, and what feels good in my gut. And so it's just been very empowering. And now I am here living in Boulder Creek, which is up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. After a journey there, my family, we lived in a converted van for 1.5 years and traveled the entire country all the way out we took that thing into Manhattan, went up into Vermont, Portland, Maine, New Jersey, all over the East Coast. And then back, we came out the southern route and then came back a little bit further north, through Colorado. And we just got to see so many national parks and meet so many wonderful people that the social media world and my beauty counter business have brought into our lives, and just connect. And like you mentioned before we got online about the importance and the magnitude of touching people and seeing, I'm a toucher, I'm a hugger, and cooking together and laughing and telling stories and seeing our daughters, connect and play. And so that was really powerful. And then we were kind of in a rush to find a new place because my husband got work with Blue Jay Health and Wellness, which is a corporate fitness company in the Bay Area. And we have 2 pit bulls and a toddler and a budget. And so we found this little studio in Berkeley, California. And Berkeley is very cool, but we found out pretty quickly that city life is not for us. And so we needed to be in nature. And so then through COVID, a silver lining there was that we were able to break our lease, and somehow, by the grace of God or goddess or the universe, we're able to find this really incredible rental in the mountains. And we moved, everything happened very quickly, and we've spent the majority of COVID experience. And now, everything that's going on, we spent that in this place where we have each other, we've got space, we're surrounded by trees, there's hiking trails. And so it was, I think, a huge game changer for our mental health through all of this. And I am currently recording podcast episodes, doing some one-on-one work, teaching flows for Blue Jay Health and Wellness. So virtual flows, we've got a program there, and that's been huge, being able to connect with people every single day. And then, mentoring women for my beauty counter business and supporting customers, and diving more deeply in that route into the disparities, again, the racial disparities in the safer skincare world, and really diving into how my work with Beauty Counter can help to bridge that gap and make safer skincare and healthcare products, like skin and body care products, available to everyone. And that, I guess, is in a nutshell, but probably most importantly, who I am is mama to Evie. I mean, I am myself holding on to our identities is so important as individuals, but I get to be Evie's mom and Rusty's wife. And that is such a gift. So I think that's it for now.
That was fantastic. And the words, and I know now, like, I mean, I kind of knew I was attracted to you, not in that way, but just
I'm into it.
I mean, you're beautiful and gorgeous besides that. No, the energy you put out, like the whole story that I'm hearing is just everything you're doing is for a reason. You question, there's a sense of purpose. And that's kind of why we started the podcast, just because we started opening our eyes, and we didn't want to go through life, mindlessly and unconscious. And, we were kind of woke up in a sense. And it sounds like you are so in line with what you want that you and your whole family are on the same page with like pivoting to do what's right, even if it's, moving to a different place or changing a job and I just love the no fear attitude. And I love how on your podcast, because I haven't listened to it in a while, but I did cherry pick a lot of episodes. I feel like now with quarantine life, I'm not making a lot of time for podcasts. There's no excuse that I don't have it. I just haven't squeezed in that energy and time for it at the moment. But you guys have no fear when it comes to like just speaking your feels, putting out that energy. And then that's what I'm drawn to, like the realness that you guys put out there. And I love it. I'm just drawn to it. I love how real you guys are. And Nick and I strive to do that as well in our podcast, just to talk about the highs, the lows, because it is far from perfection. So far.
Totally. And it's amazing how those two things, like, or many things can exist at once. Like lows and highs sometimes are like so weirdly intertwined in the same day and sometimes in the same moment. It's interesting leaning into that.
Yes. Definitely the lows come with so much growth. And so it probably would bring me to the first question. I know right now is there's a lot of growth happening. At least I know I'm trying to grow, and I'm sure you are. I can see your feed and the things you post and the resources. So for our listeners out there, and we just had a conversation about just understanding how to be anti-racist human beings. And it's something that we don't not want to talk about. Like, it's very important that we are learning it, so that way we're good role models for our daughter, and just that we can be better humans, period. But, what is one thing that you're currently doing? It could be learning, it could be unlearning, which I'm realizing I'm doing a lot of unlearning right now. Or, what is one thing that you've been really focused on right now? And if you have like a resource or a guide that's helping you, I would love for you to share it.
Okay. Well, gosh, it's hard to, there's more, I'm kind of like three faceted right now. What I'm really leaning into is, diversifying the outdoors, which is something that's so interesting. And that for me is a huge unlearning process and then relearning, right? Like the outdoors are for everyone, right? But the reality is systemic racism goes so deep also into the outdoors and that space. And if you look at most of like the magazines and the outdoor companies, it's primarily white people. And so that's been really interesting to dive into and dig into more. And an account that I've been enjoying following and learning a lot from on Instagram is called Melanin Base Camp. And they are people of color in the outdoors. And they're really trying to just help diversify the outdoors. And then that kind of also pours a little bit into just like the way that like environmentalism, we have to, if we care about the environment, we have to care about and lean into and try to be advocates and for the, anti-racism, because everything is so interconnected. And that's been really a huge eye opener for me. And then just like thinking about our adventures and traveling and what joy that brought into our life. But how some of the things we did, is an example of white privilege, right? Like traveling in a van across the country. Sometimes we slept at truck stops. Sometimes we just like park it in a city like LA, Portland, Maine. Many times we just like found a neighborhood and parked for the night, and just realizing that because we're white, I never had to think about like the fears that would be wrapped up in parking and sleeping in my car overnight, right? Having a cop come to the window. Sure, that would have been unnerving, but in no way as like scary or as unnerving or as real and raw as it would potentially be for a Black family. And so having little epiphanies like that, where it's just like, wow, this is systemic and it's deep. And I am, it's just really interesting to think about. And then, because I can't ever be short-winded, another really big one that I want to make sure that I touch on too is just, and this kind of pours into, because I'm having a lot of these conversations with Evie, and then just like, it's so important as parents and what I've had to really lean into too the past couple of weeks is how my role as a mother is in and of itself advocacy. If I choose to be intentional with the way that I do it. And so a resource that I just want to make sure that I share is The Conscious Kid. And it's incredible. Everything that's put out is so pertinent and approachable and just really clear ways that we as parents can help to have these conversations with our kids, find them books to read, raise little social justice humans that are going to be the future of this world. And teaching them to use their voice, teaching them to be inclusive, teaching them about racism and how they can be the change through their actions and through a lifetime, not just a moment. So those two right now, and I of course have so much more to share, but I feel like that's a good place to start. Depending on who you are, if you're listening, I think most of us love nature and most of us can agree that everyone should be welcome there, that it should be solace for all. And then, I imagine you have a lot of moms and parents listening and tuning in. So if you can seek out The Conscious Kid, I highly recommend it. And then from there, there's a lot of resources shared. So.
And it's kind of interesting. I feel like a lot of the resources for parents can be used for adults because I'm honestly learning how to have these conversations with adults. It's like how to bring it up. What's the dialogue do I use? Am I allowed to use that word? Then it's like, what does that word even mean? So I feel like they're not just for parents. It's pretty much for anyone who may be ignorant to how to have these conversations, period. Because Nick and we did our episode last night that won't be aired until Thursday, but there were some things that I said and I was like, I feel weird saying this, but I need to normalize this conversation and start now because now is better than ever, like not doing it at all. So right. I feel like those resources you mentioned, like I didn't even think about, the outdoors at all. So that you really shined a light on that I didn't even think of. But I completely agree when you talk about white privilege. That was what our episode was just about, just talking about the little things that we do every day that we don't think twice about, whether it's paying for something and not being questioned if we can afford it. Like there's no question, like unfortunately it's just with the system, there's so many things that I've taken for granted that I thought were just normal for everyone and they're not. But The Conscious Kid, I actually follow them as well. So that's a great one. I will put all of those amazing resources in the show notes too.
Oh, sweet.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really wanted to make sure to talk about it and have a conversation because it did happen. And I don't want just to like, hey, we're just going to go along with how to have fun during COVID. It was like, I really value how you're growing and how anyone is choosing to grow. And especially the people that I truly admire. And we're all about simplifying that chaos. And I know there's a lot of resources out there. So if you can kind of narrow down and you really did the digging and enjoy these resources, then I am definitely going to dive into them. So thank you so much for sharing that.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for asking.
Okay. So I did take some surveys just about like what people needed. And it seemed like people needed just ways to bring more joy into their life and things about mindset. And I was like, Laura would be the perfect person to talk to about this because I feel like you're always doing the work and you're always sharing just everything. And I love that you share everything. You don't hide anything. So we're gonna, I guess before we do that, what's one thing like right now during this time that's just keeping you happy as hell in this season of life? And I know there's probably plenty.
It's just getting outside. I mean, that is truly my happy place. And where we are now, like we can go out on our deck and we're just surrounded by oak trees and there's hiking trails like within a mile. So we make a point of, I have this like hashtag that I always use is just find us outside. So like when in doubt, you can probably find us outside. And that has been, that's just, that's scientifically proven, right? We are happier when we spend time outside, like period, end of story. And so I think that has been a game changer for us.
I completely agree. It's like my second therapist besides my acupuncture.
Totally.
It's like, just step outside. I'll feel better. Okay. So we're going to do this segment. I called it 5 Favorites segment, trying to make things catchy. It's not really that creative, but anyway, I just wanted to hear like your current favorites. I'm kind of being selfish. Some of these things that I wanted to know, but I know that, all of the things I'm going to ask you, people are definitely doing these activities at home and it'd be cool just to hear, just to relate to like what you're doing in all these areas. So the first one is I'm a huge quote fanatic, like obsessed. To me, that changes my whole mindset. So is there a quote that's like really resonating with you right now?
Yes, there's one that I have been like sharing on social media multiple times. So Michelle from Privilege to Progress, she shared in her feed, and I've seen it floating around a lot of places now, but normalize changing your opinion when presented with new information. And I feel like if we can all lean into that, to me, that kind of is like epitomizes growth mindset. When we're presented with something new, it's okay to change our minds. And I think that would make a big difference in this country if everyone could just lean into that a little bit more, and not like it takes away ego, it takes away pride, it opens our minds, it allows us to grow. So that's one that I just kind of just keep coming back to.
That's a good one. I follow that account as well, and there's a lot of gold there that has been definitely opening my mind to just change perspectives and be okay and sit in that discomfort of just knowing that I've done a lot of wrong things, but I was ignorant and there's no excuse for it. But yeah, I agree. That's a beautiful quote. All right. The next one is, what is a favorite meal you and the family are currently digging?
One thing I didn't share yet is how obsessed I am with sourdough. So I am actually another thing I've been doing through shelter in place and all of this has been leading workshops for sourdough sisterhood workshops, which have been amazing. Like every other week, there's like 10 to 20 women that come together and we go through the whole sourdough process virtually. And that's been a blast. And then I also have written a sourdough ebook that's basically all the things you can do, not all the things, multiple things that you can do with your sourdough discard. And if you know about sourdough, you know that, every time you want to bake a loaf, you've got to get rid of some of the starter and then feed it and it gets all bubbly and then you're ready to bake. So our favorite from that right now that we're having like multiple times a week are my sourdough tortillas, and we're just doing tacos. And so I get a big old pork shoulder from our local market. It's sustainably like grown and fed and all that, but it's still so much cheaper than most meats. And I like slow cook that, turn it into like crispy kind of carnitas. And then I love pickling my own onions. So we do pink pickled onions and some sour cream and some greens. We actually have our own little garden. So now it's prolific enough to be able to like garnish our tacos with greens from our garden. And it's on those tortillas. It's just, I could eat it every single night. So that's our go-to right now. We had it last night and my sister and her husband are here. And so last night they came over, we did tacos, they slept over, and then my brother-in-law and my husband went surfing this morning, and my sister's been helping with Evie. And so it's just like all the things that come from feeding my family and then feeding people we love. It's just a pretty special thing. And if I'm able to make it from scratch or, close to it, that makes it even more special. So.
Oh my God, I'm drooling.
So good.
Yeah. Every time you post sourdough, anything, I'm just like, one day I'm going to get there. One day I'm going to get there. Those are sourdough goals for me. And I will probably be in one of those meetings or workshops so I can learn all the things because
Yay.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Our next one is Friday the 26th.
Oh, awesome.
June, so.
All right. Yeah, I need to hop on that. And because we eat sourdough a lot too, and we buy it and it's really delicious, but it's like, it would be really cool if I could learn how to make this. Like,
yeah. It's just very cathartic, the whole experience.
It looks like a long process, but it seems like, like anything that you nurture and you watch it grow slowly, it's like you appreciate it so much more. And I feel like, we eat sourdough bread very quickly in this house. And I'm wondering if that would change, if like it would not get eaten as much. Because we're like, do you know how long it took to make this?
No, but it's so, I don't know. We eat way more now that I'm baking it. And I love it because I would bake a loaf every morning if I could. And I'm busy, but there's something so simple about it. And the guide that I had put out works the process into my life. So I'm not sitting there for hours. It's like, I get to go just like take a pause and go do the next step and then leave for a while and then come back. And the process is super forgiving as well. I've had some loads where I'm like, this is not going to be great. And it still turns out to be outstanding.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear because there's no excuse. Like I can't say I don't have time. It's like, I'm just not making the time. So I'm going to put it in my schedule and I will see you soon in there.
Oh, I can't wait. I'll send you the links after this.
Yay. Okay. Next one is a favorite. I have a lot of slashes, but you can share all or just one favorite movie, show, song, or book. I wanted to like incorporate all facets of how you may be entertained or engaging in content. I don't know.
I love it. So I'm reading a book called The Overstory by Richard Powers. And I have been reading this like since September because, life, but I'm almost through it now. And it is just beautiful. It's fiction and it's all like based on trees. So all of these different stories come together somehow interconnected by trees. And it's really, really, really powerful. So I highly recommend that. And then I'm also reading Me and White Supremacy right now. And that book is very enlightening and powerful and approachable and uncomfortable, but only in the best ways, like the ways that can help us grow. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that one as well. It's sold out hard copy. Last time I checked, I got it on Kindle. And it's cool. And there's also like journal prompts. So it's really powerful in that I'm being educated, and then I have tools to also process that information. So highly recommend. And then I'll probably go with a show. It's called Fleabag, and I believe it's on Hulu. No, Prime. It's Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And it is, I don't know, it's kind of dark, but so funny and so creative and so well written. And I don't want to give too much of it away. There's only 2 seasons, and Rusty and I are a little heartbroken that there aren't more, and we'll probably end up rewatching it. The episodes are between 20 and 30 minutes. The writer and producer is also the main character, and she is phenomenal. Like, I just want to sit down and have coffee with her and talk for hours. But it's really cool. It's brilliant. It's a UK based show.
Okay.
But I can't recommend it enough. And I wish that there were more seasons, but I could see how it'd also be exhausting, the main character's role, to like keep doing season after season. But it's cool. It allows for introspection. It allows for comedic relief. I mean, it's well done. So yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
Oh, and then Frozen 2. I mean, I just, gosh,
Bring it back in.
I think I love it more than Evie. Oh, it's a good one. So
yeah, I agree. Frozen 2 and Moana, I just watched for the first time, and the music, I am like hooked on the music.
Yeah. Moana was Evie's jam on our trip, and we had an iPad. And so like when we had extra long drive days, she'd get to watch a movie. And so I pretty much have that memorized line for line. Cause when they go through the seasons and stages where they want to watch the same thing over and over again.
Yes.
I was happy that it was Moana, because it was Moana and Trolls, and it's all good.
I just saw Trolls 2 for the first time. Our neighbor started doing these outdoor movies, which is fantastic. They got like a projector and a little screen, and they invite us over there. And Lucille maybe watches like the first 10 minutes, and then she falls asleep because it's so late. But Nick will take her into bed, and I'm just like sitting there with my drink and just watching it, laughing my ass off. But like with my sister, the kids are dead, like super quiet in our neighborhood, but the adults are all laughing. I'm like, these videos are so made for adults. Like, they're hysterical.
That is awesome. Yeah. I think they're smart by making it appeal to the parents too.
Yes.
We're going to watch it on repeat.
It's genius. All right. So thank you for sharing those. I'm definitely going to check out that show, and I'm going to look into the books. There are so many book recommendations out there. So thank you for kind of narrowing it down. I don't have a Kindle, but yeah, I was trying to decide what to invest in, because there's just so many to choose from. So
yes.
Those are great. Okay. So what has been your favorite drink?
Well, I actually am also a consultant with Scout and Cellar, which is it's a clean crafted wine. So every single bottle or can that they sell has been like vetted. Actually, the owner has gone to the wineries and toured the vineyards, and sat down for meals and drank the wine. And you can be sure that there's no added anything. And so I love wine. And so they have some really fun ones. They also have like these spritzers in a can. And I think that's what I'm digging the most right now. It's called Epic Pursuit. And it's actually created in a way that it's through the process, it's supporting the bees as well. So there's an extra sustainability bit to it, but it's like clean crafted wine, sparkling water, and then like mint, ginger, and lemon. They're so good. So I think right now that Epic Pursuit wine spritzer is my jam. It goes real nicely with tacos.
Man, you're really just making me hungry. Tacos and drinks. Okay. And what is one self-care activity that you're just really enjoying these days?
My non-negotiable morning flow. So every morning when I wake up, it's like the first priority of the day is to put my mat down, get on the ground, and flow. So that's been very, very powerful for me. It's taking time for myself, whether it's 5 minutes or 20 minutes. And I move in whatever way my body is asking me to move, which means that I have to listen to my body to know how it wants to move. So it's like getting in tune with my body for the first time, or first thing in the morning. Whereas, in the past, maybe I didn't really tune into it until came time to work out at the end of the day or the afternoon. And so now just getting in tune early helps me understand where I'm holding on to tension. I'm getting a better understanding of what that means. Like our body holds on to tension in different places for different reasons. And so I love it. And every once in a while, Evie will wake up during it. I try to get up early enough, but she'll kind of stumble in all sleepy eyed and join me on the mat. And so that's definitely something that I'm appreciating doing for self-care.
And I had questions about that. I was like, is it similar to yoga? Like, do you have to be trained in it, or is it just one of those things where you're literally just moving your body how you feel it needs to be moved at that time and place?
Yeah. I mean, my background is in functional fitness, and then DNS, which is dynamic neuromuscular stabilization. I've done a number of courses through them. And then I've taken a lot of yoga classes. I am not certified. So I come to the table with my experience in each one of those and an understanding of my body. And then also just how bodies work through like what at this point, I've been a trainer in some capacity since like 2012. So, yeah, but it's not any one specific thing. I think kind of leaning again into this growth mindset situations, I think we can, and also like, you know, the podcast and the experts that come on, it's picking and choosing from experts from a variety of places and perspectives, and then bringing into our world what resonates with us. And so that's how flow was born.
Yeah, because I honestly didn't know it was a thing until you started doing it. I'm like, flow, I'm guessing it's like yoga. I mean, I kind of call it flow when I do it just because it's literally, it's not like I've learned yoga and I'm not trained to teach yoga, but part of me can't watch yoga on a screen because I feel like it ruins my flow, if that makes any sense, to constantly
totally.
looking up and trying to make sure like my form is right. So it's like I've gotten into this hodgepodge thing where I don't even know if I'm doing it right. But when I see you do it, I'm like, that looks a little bit more legit than I'm doing it. You're probably a little bit more well-trained. Like my sister's a PTA, so she knows a lot about body mechanics and kind of helps me when I'm doing something wrong in form. But I just love the word flow. Like to me, it just sounds like just do what you feel and be smart about it. And, you know, I don't know. I dig the name a lot.
Thank you. And I don't own that. I mean, I didn't pull that from anyone else. I just kind of started to use that word because that's how it felt to me. But I'm a big believer. My friend Lindsay Muma shared this with me, and I'm a big believer in this. Like, no one owns anything, especially like intellectual or creative. Like, but information and thoughts and whatnot, it moves through us. And so that's kind of helped me like let go of needing to have ownership of anything that I'm putting into the world. It's like I get to be this kind of vessel for information and creative thought and perspective to come through. But everything I put into the world has come from somewhere, right? Like we all are. And that's another way to get real woo-woo. Like what evidence of us being all so interconnected, all of this like creative content and energy and everything is flowing through everybody, and everything that we know came from somewhere. And so it's kind of like seeking out the things that are going to help us, that we can take in and that can move through us, that are going to better us, versus, you know, taking in toxicity, because then that becomes what we pass on. But if we can take in flow and positive energy, then that's what we that's what gets to kind of pass through us. So that got real crazy real quick, but you know, I'm here for it.
No, and I've also heard, you know, even if you are doing the same thing that someone else is doing, like, you know, if someone else was doing like quote unquote flow, like your voice and perspective is so different than somebody else's. So, you know, I think it's great that you have that mindset of, you know, not worrying about where it comes from, or am I doing it the right way, or am I doing it like they are? It's like just being you and your way. Like that's the voice that people want to hear because you're authentic about it and people are drawn to that. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally. That abundance mindset versus, you know, like there's enough for everyone if we just are intentional about it.
Yes.
Enough space for us all.
All right. So we're coming to the end. On all of our episodes, we really like to do some kind of take action. We call it challenges because we just feel like when you hear the word challenge, it's just like more of a push and motivation to like just try one new thing if you aren't. So if you could give just like one simple action to others, just to stay positive or just to be more intentional, like during this time, I'm guessing what would that action or challenge be for those friends?
Gosh, that's a hard one. I want to say flow, but then I feel like I've talked about that. I think one thing that most are lacking in some capacity right now is connection. So like one thing to go do today, whether you can do it in person and actually touch someone, or you can do it from a safe distance, if that, you know, if that feels better, or if you can do it even virtually, but like just reach out to someone you love, who you know loves you and sees you, and take a moment just to connect deeply today with someone face to face, or at least eyes to eyes. If you can do it, like if it's virtual on a screen. But for months now, people have been so isolated, and I truly think that it's not being spoken up enough about how that's going to impact people's mood and emotion and mental health. And so if we can all just lean into each other a little bit more, I feel like we're in a season right now where there's a lot of conflict, and people not everyone, but there's some attacking, and people are so on edge. And so if we can just lean into people who know can hold space for us, and then also show up and hold space for those people. Having a moment every single day to connect with somebody you care about, and where that person is going to build you up and lift you up. I think that's a pretty powerful, intentional task that we can all do every single day.
I 100% agree. We just got done hanging out with some close friends, and it's been a while, and we're not really sure what friends were comfortable hanging out with us face to face. And we went to the park, and we just, we ordered some brick oven pizza, and we brought some cocktails to go. And I had this revelation that it didn't even matter where we were at that point in time. It was just so good to hang out with them and just have conversations with them, and to see our kids playing. It was just, my cup was immediately filled after that. And I completely agree. To me, it doesn't matter where we are. It's just the people that are around us and that connection piece that is so, so powerful. And I think you're right. I think there's a lot more people having issues with isolation than, I'm sure it's probably scary to talk about that as well. But I think you're doing an amazing job just reaching out and doing these workshops. I'm sure you are bringing some amazing connection, even if it's virtually, to these people who are probably just, they are striving for that, or they're craving it so much. And you are doing so many amazing things for people like that too. And it's just, you're phenomenal. You're phenomenal.
Well, thank you. I'm definitely always going to be a work in progress, but I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've had to kind of be guides for connection through this, because I definitely feel called to do that. So whether it's, the podcast, we actually did a podcast virtual retreat, which was cool and fun, and just finding ways, because I really think that's what the world is missing right now. One of many things, but I think that's a big one.
Love it. I wish that we were right there talking to you and we could keep going, but
yes, we'll have time in person.
I know this is just like a spoiler teaser for what's to come, but I just want to thank you again so much, Laura, for being on here and just sharing your wisdom. And I'm sure anyone who listens to this is going to have that's going to be their positivity for the day. That's going to drive them to do something amazing today. So it's these little actions and storytelling that you're doing, and just the beautiful work that you're putting out there. Thank you so much. You are so inspiring, and I appreciate your realness and authenticity through all of it. And I'm going to shut up now, because I'm going to keep blabbing about.
We just keep talking and talking. I look forward to seeing you in person.
I know, you too. So thank you so much for coming on here, and I hope you have a good rest of the day with your family.
Thank you. You too. I appreciate it.
All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for our interview with Laura. We hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you like this episode, please do us a favor and help us spread the message. You can do this by writing a review or simply sharing this episode with a friend. And remember, sharing sparks a conversation, conversation leads to action, and action is how we're able to live a happy and intentional as hell lifestyle. We want to thank you all for listening today, and we will talk to you again next week.
See you next time.